But the thing that's hard, the thing that's the most crushing for anybody out there is to think that their child is going to experience that.
Kevin Costner was once the face of Hollywood's golden age, but now, at 70, his story has taken a heartbreaking turn. Behind the fame, the fortune, and the legend lies a trail of brutal health battles, shattered relationships, and financial risks that nearly cost him everything. Costner took his life to the screen, only to find himself fighting for peace, love, and legacy in one of the most defining chapters of his years. Costner's rise to fame. Kevin Costner has spent decades at the center of American film, shaping entire eras with roles that felt larger than life. Yet behind that long stretch of success is a man who has carried far more challenges, shifts, and reinventions than most people ever realized. And at 70, he's facing a chapter few expected. He was born Kevin Michael Costner on January 18, 1955, in Linwood, California, to William and Sharon Costner. His father worked as an electrician before rising into management at a public utilities company, while his mother held a career in social welfare. Kevin was the youngest of 3 boys, and from the very beginning, his life was shaped by movement. His father's job required the family to relocate again and again, a constant shuffle between towns like Ventura, Visalia, and finally Orange County, where Kevin spent much of his adolescence. These relocations didn't offer the stability most young kids crave. Kevin often had to rebuild friendships, adjust to new schools, and find his footing each time the family packed up and moved. But those years also formed a pattern that would follow him into adulthood: the ability to adapt quickly, observe people closely, and understand different environments. Despite showing interest in writing, sports, and the arts, Kevin didn't immediately pursue acting. Instead, he attended California State University, Fullerton, where he studied business administration and graduated in 1978. Acting was a quiet interest, not yet a career plan. After college, he stepped into the workforce like anyone else, taking a series of practical jobs to support himself. He worked as a truck driver, a marketing executive, and even as a tour guide at Raleigh Studios, where he gave visitors a glimpse into the world he quietly hoped to join one day. His early attempts at acting moved slowly. He took classes when he could afford them and accepted small opportunities whenever they appeared. His very first film, Sizzle Beach, USA, was shot in 1978, but wasn't released until 1981. It arrived without impact and came nowhere close to announcing a new star. Kevin kept going anyway. He took more acting classes, auditioned for roles he never heard back about, and navigated the typical uncertainty most young actors face. Nothing about his early career suggested that he was on the edge of becoming one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. Finally, his turning point came in 1987 with The Untouchables. Cast as Elliot Ness, the determined crime fighter in Brian De Palma's stylish take on Prohibition-era Chicago, Costner delivered a performance that shifted everything. Surrounded by major names like Sean Connery and Robert De Niro, he brought steadiness to the role and held his own with a confidence that caught the industry's attention. For the first time, audiences saw Kevin as a leading man with presence and emotional depth. His career climbed quickly from there. The late 80s and early 90s became the era most viewers associate with Kevin Costner. Each film he starred in expanded his reach in a different way. Some were nostalgic, others political or romantic, and some rooted in the American West, a genre that would eventually draw him back decades later. That pull toward the Western landscape followed him throughout his career. In 2003, he directed and starred in Open Range, a film that reintroduced audiences to a slower, more reflective style of storytelling set against wide plains and open skies. It showed the measured, introspective, and grounded version of Costner that many people consider his most authentic. 15 years later, that same sensibility found new life in Yellowstone. When the series premiered in 2018, Costner stepped into the role of John Dutton, a rancher fighting to protect his land and legacy. The show became a cultural phenomenon, introducing him to a new generation of viewers and reaffirming his place as a central figure in modern American storytelling. It was a late-career resurgence few actors experience, and for a time, it seemed like the perfect second act. But what happened behind the scenes, both on set and in his personal life, would soon take him down a much more complicated path. Controversial Yellowstone exit. For 5 years, Yellowstone was the Paramount Network's biggest hit, drawing millions of viewers who connected with the story's rugged landscapes, family conflicts, and the authority Costner brought to every scene. It was the kind of role many felt he was born to play. But behind the show's success, tension was steadily building. As Costner moved deeper into the production of his long-planned film project, Horizon: An American Saga, scheduling conflicts began to surface. The film was a major personal investment, creatively, financially, and emotionally, and it demanded a level of time and attention that made it increasingly difficult for him to meet the shifting production needs of Yellowstone. The series required flexibility, and Costner was dividing his energy between two demanding worlds. Industry reports later suggested there were creative disagreements and communication strains between Costner and Yellowstone creator Taylor Sheridan. Their relationship had grown complicated. Both men were ambitious, both had large projects underway, and both had strong ideas about how the show should move forward. Over time, their visions no longer aligned. The situation escalated publicly in 2023, when speculation grew about Costner's availability for Season 5. Rumors circulated about shortened shooting schedules, conflicts on set, and stalled negotiations. Costner stayed mostly silent as the coverage swirled, but behind the scenes, the future of his character was becoming more uncertain. Then, in June 2024, Costner announced his departure. His statement was brief but revealing. Speaking calmly in an interview, he said, "I gave this thing 5 seasons. I was really happy to do it. And I don't need drama. So, let's just take that drama away. Let's take the guessing away. The fans have been way too good to me. And my obligation is to go on and continue to make things that mean something to them." He didn't assign blame, didn't describe disagreements, and didn't revisit the rumors. Instead, he closed the chapter with the same deliberate tone that has defined much of his career. The show moved on without him, and when Season 5 finally aired, viewers discovered that John Dutton had been killed off-screen, a decision that sparked immediate backlash. Fans expressed frustration that a character who had carried the series from the beginning and who represented its emotional center was removed without a proper goodbye. Some felt it showed a lack of respect for Costner's contribution. Others believed it reflected the unresolved tension that surrounded his exit. Regardless of opinion, the impact was clear. Costner's abrupt departure reshaped the final season of Yellowstone and shifted the way audiences talked about the show. What had once been a celebrated partnership between creator and star now became a story of creative conflict, miscommunication, and decisions that left a mark on both sides. Yet for Costner, the exit from Yellowstone was not just the end of a role. It triggered a wave of commentary about his career, his relationships in Hollywood, and the challenges he would face. Projects slowed, headlines sharpened, and the narrative around him began to change in ways he couldn't fully control. Reputation decline. After the announcement of his departure, reports circulated suggesting that he had abandoned the cast and crew, leaving others to manage the fallout of stalled production schedules and last-minute rewrites. None of these accounts captured the full picture, but they spread quickly, shaping the narrative before Costner ever had a chance to respond. Sadly, this narrative didn't paint him fairly, nor did it fade fast. But this wasn't the first time his public image had taken a hit. Earlier in his career, Costner weathered a difficult storm after the release of Waterworld in 1995. The film famously went over budget, struggled during production, and became an easy target for critics who framed it as an ego-driven project that spiraled out of control. While later reassessments softened that view, the initial response left a mark. Costner walked away from the experience with a reputation for overreaching, even though many of the production issues were far more complicated than the headlines suggested. Other criticisms followed him into the 2000s, particularly regarding several of his most iconic roles. Films like Dances with Wolves and The Bodyguard faced renewed scrutiny for what some described as white savior narratives, roles that placed him at the center of stories involving marginalized characters. These critiques grew louder as cultural conversations shifted, and although they didn't erase the quality of his performances, they added another layer to the evolving public perception of his work. By 2025, the narrative surrounding Costner had become noticeably harsher. Some media outlets began framing him with a new, provocative narrative: Hollywood's most hated cowboy. The phrase was often connected to speculation, behind-the-scenes rumors, and the tension surrounding his projects. The man who once seemed unshakable now carried a cloud of misunderstanding and criticism that followed him wherever his name appeared. All of this unfolded during a time when Costner was living in greater personal isolation than ever before. Following his divorce, he spent long stretches on his ranch in Aspen, far from the public eye. Friends described him as reflective, guarded, and deeply protective of his privacy. The ranch offered space and quiet, but it also placed him at a distance from the industry he had spent his life navigating. The more isolated he became, the easier it was for narratives to take shape without his input. But that's not all. His past also resurfaced in ways he likely wished had stayed behind him. In 2006, he faced an accusation from a masseuse at a golf resort. An allegation centered on inappropriate behavior during a spa session. While the case was eventually dismissed, produced no criminal charges, and was ultimately handled through a civil process before fading from headlines, the damage was done. And as coverage of his Yellowstone exit intensified, these old scandals resurfaced, often stripped of context, and were used to reinforce the growing portrayal of him as difficult or problematic. Costner had built much of his career on integrity, and seeing old accusations reappear, even ones resolved years earlier, was another blow to a reputation already under pressure. The scrutiny deepened again in 2025, when Costner became involved in a lawsuit related to the financing of Horizon: An American Saga. The film was a passion project he had spent years developing, funding, and shaping. Its scale was enormous, and the financial commitments behind it were complex. Investors raised concerns about the production's costs and timelines, leading to a legal dispute that quickly became public. While the case did not determine guilt or wrongdoing, it definitely added another thread to the growing narrative of Costner being caught in a web of professional strain and public skepticism. But the most personal and painful chapter of Costner's life is the collapse of his marriage to Christine Baumgartner. Marriage to Christine Baumgartner. By the late 1990s, Kevin Costner was in a very different phase of his life. He had already weathered several career storms, and he was slowly rebuilding both his personal and professional world. That's when he met Christine Baumgartner, a stylish, entrepreneurial handbag designer who carried herself with confidence and a calm, grounded energy. Their paths crossed casually at first, but the connection grew steadily from there. Their early relationship unfolded without the noise that usually surrounds Hollywood couples. Costner was already a father, already famous, and already wary of public attention. Christine, meanwhile, was younger, focused on her business, and had no interest in being pulled into publicity. That balance between his world and her independence became the foundation of something that felt stable for both of them. But stability doesn't mean simplicity. In 2003, the two hit a turning point. Christine wanted children, and she was very clear about it. Costner wasn't sure he could step into fatherhood again. He'd already raised 3 children from his first marriage and wasn't certain he wanted to start over. And so, Christine made it clear to him that she needed to know they shared the same future. But Costner hesitated long enough that some thought the relationship might end right there. But it didn't. That moment forced him to confront what he really wanted, and he realized he wasn't ready to let her go. Later that year, he chose the future she had been brave enough to say out loud. On September 25, 2004, the two married in a picturesque ceremony at Costner's Aspen Ranch, surrounded by mountains, family, and a sense of calm that had been missing in his life for years. It was simple, elegant, and distinctly theirs. Over the next several years, the life Christine had imagined became real. They welcomed 3 children, Caden in 2007, Hayes in 2009, and Grace in 2010. Those years gave Costner a new kind of rhythm, defined by school schedules, family routines, and long stretches spent at the ranch. Insider reports said those years were the most grounded he had been in decades. Hollywood was still part of his life, but it wasn't the center of it anymore. But like many long marriages, the quiet shifts showed up slowly before anyone noticed them. As Costner's career picked up again, boosted by the success of Yellowstone and the massive undertaking of his passion project, Horizon, the demands on his time increased. Longer shoots, more travel, larger commitments. And as his schedule grew heavier, the gap between them grew wider. In May 2023, Christine filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The announcement shocked many fans who still saw their family as one of Costner's most stable anchors. But the divorce quickly moved from surprising to complicated. The legal battle that followed became one of the most publicized moments of Costner's recent life. Christine's initial request for $248,000 per month in child support sparked intense media attention. Costner countered. Courts reviewed expenses, income, and lifestyle. Eventually, the judge reduced the support to around $63,000 per month, still substantial, but far from the original figure. Their financial disagreements played out in headlines, interviews, and courtroom statements, each one adding a new layer of scrutiny to a marriage that had once felt so private. By February 2024, the divorce was finalized. 2 decades together, 3 children, and years of shared life were now formally divided legally, financially, and emotionally. Costner retreated to his Aspen Ranch again, with the weight that follows any long relationship coming to an end. But this breakup didn't just close a marriage. It opened a new round of attention, speculation, and curiosity about Costner's personal life. And as soon as the dust settled, questions about his romantic past, new connections, and long-standing rumors began resurfacing with fresh intensity. Love life drama. Long before the headlines about his divorce from Christine Baumgartner, there was Cindy Silva, his first wife, and the one that anchored his early adult life. In 1978, Costner married Cindy, a college classmate he had met at California State University, Fullerton. She supported him through the unpredictable first years of his acting career, long before anyone expected him to become a Hollywood figure. Together, they built a family with 3 children, Annie, Lily, and Joe. For a long time, their marriage appeared steady. But as Costner's fame grew, and the demands of work pulled him between sets and continents, the relationship faced pressures that never truly eased. After 16 years together, they finalized a high-profile divorce in 1994, with a settlement widely reported to be around $80 million, one of the largest in Hollywood at the time. Even after the split, they remained committed co-parents, but the marriage that had carried him through his rise was over. Not long after, Costner entered a brief but consequential relationship with Bridget Rooney in 1995, which led to the birth of his son Liam in 1996. The relationship didn't last, but the two established a long-term co-parenting arrangement. This chapter marked a shift in how the public viewed his personal life. Things were less private, more scrutinized, and steadily expanding. As his career moved through the 90s and early 2000s, Costner's name became a regular feature in entertainment columns. He was romantically linked to a long list of high-profile women: Birgit Cunningham, Ella McPherson, Courtney Cox, Halle Berry, Whitney Houston, Naomi Campbell, Michelle Pfeiffer, Madonna, Jennifer Lopez, and Sharon Stone. Some connections were brief, some didn't even exist, and were simple social overlaps exaggerated by the press, while others were genuine relationships that never played out in public. One rumor that has followed him for decades centers on a possible fling with Whitney Houston during the era of The Bodyguard. Both were global stars at that moment, and their on-screen chemistry only added fuel to speculation. Costner has always spoken about her with deep respect for her talent, her spirit, and the fragility she carried, but he has never confirmed anything beyond friendship. Even so, the story remained part of Hollywood mythology, resurfacing every few years as new retrospectives revisited their time together. These rumored relationships painted a picture of a man constantly moving through overlapping social circles, from fashion models to musicians, actresses, and entrepreneurs. But instead of clarifying every rumor, Costner had learned to stay quiet and let time move on. Following his recent divorce from Christine Baumgartner, the cycle repeated itself. With the breakup still fresh, Costner was spotted in public with 2 names that immediately sparked new interest: Jennifer Lopez and Sharon Stone. The sightings weren't anything too dramatic, but they were enough to restart conversations about Costner's love life. Neither connection was confirmed as a formal relationship, but the pictures alone were enough for the entertainment world to begin weaving its own narratives. And now, at 70, as he continues navigating new chapters in both his personal and professional world, another topic has begun drawing attention: his finances, his long-term earnings, and the future of his net worth. Financial issues and net worth. As of 2025, Kevin Costner's net worth is widely estimated at around $250 million, a figure built over decades of acting, directing, producing, and unexpected ventures that many fans never realized he pursued. His income has never come from a single lane. Acting gave him the foundation, but Costner has always worked across multiple worlds. His directing brought him major recognition, his producing built long-term revenue, and his music career with Kevin Costner and Modern West brought in touring income and a loyal fan base separate from his film audience. Real estate has also played a significant role. Costner owns a 160-acre ranch in Aspen, a sprawling property as calm and isolated as he prefers. He also holds a large estate in Santa Barbara, one of his most valuable assets. Through the years, he even stepped into business ventures outside entertainment, including the Midnight Star Casino in South Dakota, which he eventually sold in 2017. Each move added to a career portfolio that looked far broader than the typical Hollywood resume. But wealth, especially at Costner's level, is rarely simple. His financial life has been shaped by major personal turning points, including the settlements and long-term obligations from his marriages. They didn't erase his fortune, but they did reshape it, tightening the margins around projects that required personal funding. And in Costner's world, personal funding has always been part of the equation. More than most actors of his generation, Costner has repeatedly taken financial risks on his own films. He has a long history of putting his own money into projects he believed in, films whose scale or ambition made studios hesitate. And while some of those risks paid off, some didn't. Nowhere has that been more evident than in his massive, multi-part Western epic, Horizon, an American Saga. Costner poured significant personal funds into its production, pushing forward even when investors grew cautious. The financial commitment was enormous, large enough to create tension, legal disputes, and a wave of questions about how much he was willing to risk for a story he felt needed to be told. Some of these investments turned into long-term gains. Others became losses that barely made headlines but still left their mark. And at 70, he's navigating the aftermath of both, balancing valuable properties and strong earning potential with projects that demand more than they return, at least in the short term. His financial life today is a mix of stability and strain, a high net worth paired with high obligations, valuable assets paired with ambitious investments, and a career that still generates income, but no longer provides the predictability it once did. But financial pressure isn't the only concern surrounding Costner in this new chapter. Behind the scenes, another issue has begun shaping the conversation around him. This time, it's tied to his health and the private challenges that come with aging in the public eye. Health struggles. Kevin Costner's health has been tested in ways most viewers never realized, with moments that revealed just how far he's pushed himself to keep going, even when the cost was steep. One of the clearest examples came during the filming of Hidden Figures in 2016, when Costner suffered a severe bout of kidney stones. The pain was intense, the kind that stops most people instantly, yet the production schedule didn't slow down. Costner ended up working for nearly 10 days while hooked to an intravenous drip, trying to manage the pain enough to keep shooting. The bruising on his arms from the procedure became so visible that he rolled down his sleeves on set to hide the marks. Looking back on that period, he admitted, "I wanted to cry, but there was everybody watching, so I didn't." His health also became a subject of online debate during the later seasons of Yellowstone. After Season 4 aired, fans noticed visible changes and subtle shifts in weight, posture, and energy. Rumors quickly spread about ear cancer, a claim that circulated widely despite no confirmation. The speculation got so out of control that it overshadowed the real explanation. Costner was juggling long filming schedules, outdoor shoots, and the exhaustion that comes with leading a massive production. Doctors have also warned Costner about skin cancer risks, a concern shared by many actors who spend decades filming outdoors under harsh sunlight. Westerns, ranch dramas, and wide landscape productions exposed him to long hours in the open sun, and medical professionals urged him to stay cautious. While he has taken these warnings seriously, they remain part of the ongoing monitoring he has to maintain as he gets older. In recent years, Costner has also become a frequent target of death hoaxes, especially between 2024 and 2025, when social media repeatedly circulated false claims about his passing. These hoaxes spread quickly, often picking up attention before being debunked. Each time, Costner's team stepped forward to clarify that he was alive, working, and still active. But the fact that these rumors persisted shows how easily online speculation can overtake reality, especially with public figures who keep their private lives guarded. Despite all the noise, what stands out most is what hasn't happened. As of 2025, there are no confirmed major illnesses, no diagnosis, no serious condition is shaping his daily life. Costner remains active, involved in multiple projects, and capable of working at a level that would challenge actors half his age. He manages pain, listens to medical guidance, and moves forward with the same quiet resilience that has shaped his entire career. But his age, his health scares, and the physical demands of the industry have all raised a new question fans keep asking every year. What is Kevin Costner actually planning next? And is retirement finally on his horizon? Retirement? For someone who has spent nearly 5 decades in front of the camera, Kevin Costner shows almost no interest in slowing down. While most actors his age begin to step back from demanding roles, Costner has made it clear that retirement isn't part of his plan. He still acts, still directs, still produces, and still looks for stories that feel worth the long hours and the risk. As he puts it, he wants to keep creating projects that capture imagination, the same instinct that pulled him into film in the first place. The center of his current workload is Horizon, his massive 4-part Western epic he spent years building. Beyond the Western world, Costner is also exploring dramatic territory. He has been in talks to play Bill Clinton in the upcoming political series United, a project backed by Leonardo DiCaprio as producer. If the role moves forward, it would mark one of Costner's most ambitious television performances since Yellowstone, offering a shift from ranching drama to political character study. And then there's the music, something he returns to whenever film schedules allow. Costner continues to perform with his band, Kevin Costner and Modern West, playing shows across the country with a relaxed ease that contrasts sharply with the intensity of his film work. Music gives him a different kind of creative outlet, one built less on pressure and more on connection. So while the headlines speculate about his future, Kevin Costner keeps moving, building, and creating. There is no farewell tour, no final bow, and no hint of stepping away. If anything, his late career looks more like a second climb than a gentle fade. For now, retirement is simply not on his horizon. Do you think it's time for Kevin Costner to retire? Drop your answers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.